the government appears to be developing software using AI to spy on you, to discover what is being referred to as concerning posts. All the while, it's also reported that they might be trying to rename these or rebrand these non-crime hate incidents, which I've spoken about in previous videos, which I think is frankly a waste of time because, as others have already commented, it's pretty much the same thing in all but name. So I move to this article from the Free Speech Union. If you're not a member, I suggest you go and join. If you value your free speech, not a sponsored video, I hasten to add. They've not asked me to do this or anything else, but here we are. So a very interesting article here about non-crime hate incidents potentially being renamed rather than being abolished. Now, frankly, I think they should be abolished because if something's not a crime, it's nothing to do with the police. Not really, anyway, apart from keeping the peace, which they could do in various ways, but without recording anything and without going to the extent of something that might then later appear on an enhanced DBS check, which could cause you all sorts of problems, even though you've committed no crime. I've spoken about that in previous videos. College of Policing, however, disagrees. They seem to think that a proactive approach would prevent incidents from escalating into more serious offences, which in the grand scheme of things, that's a possibility. They could do that. But with so many offences going uninvestigated and they just simply don't have the resources to do that, I respectfully suggest that that's where the time is better spent. Now, in theory, the police are only supposed to record these things where there is a serious risk of significant harm. That could then escalate into criminality. Not simply because someone feels offended, although that's how the guidelines are sort of drafted. When somebody perceives something to be said or done in a sort of way of hate and someone may be offended by that, then they should be investigating that and potentially recording that as a non-crime hate incident. Over 13,000 of these non-crime hate incidents were recorded across England and Wales last year, prompting warnings from campaigners and commentators, including myself, about the effect on free speech. And I think this has a very disturbing effect on free speech. If we look at a few examples just recently, you'll have seen some from my recent videos. Alison Pearson, you'll be familiar with from the Telegraph, visited in a home by Essex police, just following a complaint again over a social media post and being investigated, initially believed that she was being investigated over a non-crime hate incident, and this obviously resulted in much public debate. You'll remember the grandmother that hit social media with the video of the police officers in plain clothes attending her home after she posted a critical comment over her local councillor on Facebook saying that he should be resigning. Government has defended the use of these in saying that they are combating hate and everything else, which I support. I support combating hate and stamping that out. But is this really the right way of going about it? Because, as we know, with many other things, it's open to abuse. Now, again, this article here says critics claim that they're a distraction from overstretched police forces. That's exactly something that I've been saying for some time now. I'm not for a moment suggesting that anyone is pulling bits from what I'm saying. Maybe they are. I don't know. I don't know if they watch my videos or not, but I've been saying that. I think that that is a huge distraction from overstretched police resources. And I think, with respect, police officers should be policing real crime and actually going to sort things out, because there are so many victims of real crimes that don't get police attention that they really should. But then we come to, what is this government doing with AI? And I say this government, it's either this government, the last government, a combination, or an ongoing thing, because this appears to have been set up in 2019, obviously some years ago. So this, again from Free Speech Union here, says that it's a controversial disinformation team developing a secretive AI program which trawls through social media looking for concerning posts that it deems problematic, that it might take action on. So here's an extract, and I'll link this below so you can go and read it. It says, records show the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology recently awarded a £2.3 million contract to Faculty AI to build monitoring software which can search for foreign intelligence, fair enough, detect deepfakes, fair enough, and analyse social media narratives. And that's where it might start to cross a little bit of a grey threshold. The platform is part of the Counter Disinformation Unit, which was set up in 2019, hence the 2019 bit, and sparked widespread criticism for amassing files on journalists, academics and MPs who challenged the government's narrative during the pandemic. Now, Lots of people challenged the government's narrative during the pandemic. You may have been familiar with that. You may have done that yourself on social media. Maybe there's a file on you, even if you're not a journalist, but even if you may be a citizen journalist, or you may just be someone sitting at home posting what you think, which, as we know, can have consequences. Maybe there's a file on you. This is perhaps something you might need to be aware of. The unit, which has been rebranded the National Security Online Information Team, has links to intelligence agencies, which has allowed it to avoid public scrutiny. It reports here. The new AI tool called the Counter Disinformation Data Platform is looking solely for posts which pose a threat to national security and public safety risk. Now, I would think most things that you are likely to post are not going to be a threat to national security and public safety risk and any of those things. But how do we know that this AI tool is not going to pull lots of people who are completely innocent, start pulling files on them, put them into a database, get them investigated, and suddenly we're looking at a bit of a breach of their right to privacy here, potentially? The current focus of beta testing is the influence of foreign states during elections, which is, again, it's fair enough, and how much do we really want to allow this to spill over the edges of what we think is reasonable. I think if you were to ask the question, do we think it's reasonable that we ensure that foreign states are not interfering with our elections, we'd probably say that's perfectly reasonable. If we were then to say, well, is it going to snoop on social media, look for narratives and highlight people that it might label a certain way and say you're saying things wrong, perhaps you might not be so comfortable with that. Heavily redacted documents obtained by Big Brother Watch through Freedom of Information requests show that the government's reserving the right to use the platform for other uses. But of course they are. An executive summary for the project says, while the CDDP has a current national security focus, the tool has the ability to be pivoted to focus on any priority area. Now, there are numerous priority areas that the government's been looking at just recently that it might well tune and focus this new AI power on. And you might be it. Since 2021, contracts show the government spent more than £5.3 million on developing and other disinformation projects, including detecting coronavirus information, analysing climate-related mis- or disinformation on social media. But there's a problem with that, because if something starts out as misinformation or disinformation, which are subtly different, by the way, mis just meaning wrong, dis meaning to disrupt and to change the narrative on something. If something started out as being wrong, but then actually later on they make realizations and discoveries that think, actually, that was right in the first place, but you've already been labeled by that point. You're already in a database. There's already a file. You've already been investigated, and perhaps you've already been arrested and questioned, maybe even charged, and maybe even in prison. Potentially, at least. There's the potential for this to go badly wrong later on, particularly when AI is involved. We've had all sorts of interesting things just recently to do with AI. There was an interesting thread just recently. I will try to remember to link to you from Max Schofield, barrister specialising in VAT and tax litigation. He had an interesting thread on AI, and he suggested, and as I would suggest, that no lawyer actually use this as your primary tool, perhaps as a bit of a guide for some things here and there, but certainly not as the main guide, because it will make things up. It will pull incorrect cases. It will, the hallucinations is a well-known phenomena for AI, making things up, making up cases where it doesn't find one that's suitable, so it makes one up that makes it look like it's suitable. I've read stories of lawyers around the world have actually submitted documents and then been disciplined because they've submitted a document which has false cases in it, so they are citing authorities that simply don't exist. I've had lots of different experiences with AI fairly recently. We've had, and I don't mind to say because it's not revealing any details or anything else, but we've had clients arguing about something using AI, going back and forth, and the AI has generated all sorts of nonsense and misleading and going off on tangents on different things. And therefore, it's been a completely pointless conversation because it will pull up almost imaginary arguments and use a point of law that's completely irrelevant to the conversation. For example, you might be talking about a straightforward breach of contract matter. The AI might then suddenly pull up something to do with negligence and then start arguing that this is now all negligent, which obviously it isn't because it was a completely contractual matter in the first place. I've seen LinkedIn articles which I know are completely written by AI. And there's some tools like GPT-0, I think it's called. GPT-0, again, not sponsored, but GPT-0. You can go on that website and paste in articles that you might have read, and it will scan it and give you a best guess as to whether or not this is likely generated by AI. And many of these articles that I've seen on LinkedIn, they look very AI to me, so I've dumped some of them in. And sure enough, it said 100% written by AI. And then you get other machines which are making it more human-like text. So it's generated by AI, then it goes through another filter in another program to make it look like it's generated by a human. So it throws in natural errors in there to make it look real. I teach law sometimes at the law school, bar students, and I've had students email me asking for a reference, clearly using AI. And I've written back to say, sure, I can provide you a reference, but I have to ask, is this ChatGPT? And after a bit of an awkward break between emails, they did reply and say, yes, it was ChatGPT. I just thought it was better to have a more professional request for this reference. To which obviously I said, it's not a good start, because we can spot these things miles away. And I think most people can spot these AI things miles away. So I highlight all of that because there are serious problems with AI. And so there is a huge potential here for this to go very, very badly wrong. So coming full circle, if they're using this software, which is utilizing AI to scour the internet and find posts that it thinks is of real concern, and then flag people up for investigation and put them on a list and get files pulled and everything else, and you may find yourself being questioned by the police over what may only have been a parody account or a sarcastic response to something in current affairs. Speaking of current affairs, a video upcoming, GB News has had a success in court with an Ofcom decision. Broadly, the distinction was between a current affairs program and a news program. More about that in another video. I'm still reading the judgment. Very, very interesting. And I believe my learned friend Alan Robertshaw is doing a video on that as well. I'll link him below. He's on Art of Law. Go subscribe to him if you like his sort of content as well. And I'm sure you'll find that interesting. But I find this quite worrying, actually, that not only do we have software which is scouring the internet looking for things that it might think are concerning that you've posted, and as we know, people have gone to prison for things that they've posted, but also the obfuscation and the twisting and the changing of non-crime hate incidents, a rebrand or something like that. Quite simply, they shouldn't really exist. If anything, the police should, make a doorstep, make a phone call, or try to keep the peace in some other way, not by recording people in a little black book which are effectively blacklisted for certain things. It could cause people serious problems, such as if you work with children, you work in a school, you work in healthcare or any other sort of profession. If they do an enhanced DBS check and then they see that and they say, you've got a hate incident recorded against you, you might lose a job for that, or you might not get hired for the job for that, or you might get all sorts of other problems. So I can see this as being a real problem, especially if they now combine AI trawling through posts. If they get onto one and they go down a rabbit hole of your posts and things that you've done or said online before, even many years ago, it might put you in a file and on a list. And I think that's a problem, and I think that's concerning. So let me know what you think about that in the comments below. I'll probably do a post about this as well with a poll. So if I do, check that out in the description. And with that said, thank you for watching. I appreciate you watching, joining me here. We are on this journey of understanding law together, and I think it really should be simplified. I think the law's got far too complex. I think the system is too complex, too difficult for most people to navigate, and certainly too expensive. I know I'm a lawyer saying that. Certainly, I think too expensive for most people to navigate. Let me know what you think. Please do subscribe to the channel. Support me that way. It is free to subscribe. And as always, thank you for watching.